This is a newspaper headline segment where we take a look at some selected national dailies and give a feel of what this papers have in the front page today. And as traditional, we'll start with the Daily Trust, which I have a copy here in the studio. The very screaming headline, a lead story this morning, and in the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper said Nigerians decry rising cost of living. Writers attached to the story says rice costs 70,000 naira, flour 44,000 naira per bag, cement 7,000 naira per bag. And another writer said it's now difficult to survive in Nigeria. The last one says tame inflation, tackle insecurity. That's from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Get that story on page 4 and the Daily Times newspaper. Above that, we have a kicker, Gaza. NSIA, that's the Nigeria Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, asked ICJ to halt genocide against Palestinians. Very, very, very heartbreaking story there, if you ask me what's going on. But this is the NSCIA talking to the ICJ here. Page 6 has details of that story. And Ekiti abduction, our children left without food, beaten by captors. Very heartbreaking. Children involved. And page 30 has details of this story. And we have very beautiful infographics here about the cost of living in front of the page. And then just beside that, at the left-hand side of the paper, we have ahead Saturday's by-election, Plateau PDP protest omission on ballot. Page 13 has details of that story. Naira gains, sells for 1,400 naira per dollar at parallel market. Page 24 has details. Niger's junta expels EU recovery mission members. Page 6 has details. And it's about the stories we have in the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Let's move on to the Nation's newspaper. The lead story has a kicker that talks about Naira's fall. It says CBN moves against banks for hoarding $5 billion. And Apex Bank deploys monitors in DMBs to enforce compliance with exchange rules. Started on the front page, continue reading on page 4. Above that, we have pressure mounts on abductors of Ekiti pupils. And it says the Inspector General of Police deploys AIG and assets and kidnappers low ransom demand. Get details of that heartbreaking development there on page 5. I am the unifier for Edo PDP, says Igodalo. Page 11 has details of that. And Ondo Deputy Governor Adelami pledges to add value. Page 6 of the Nation's newspaper have details of that story. And let's come down where we have INEC excludes PDP from by-election in Plateau State, and court stops Ebonyi PDP senatorial candidates. Get all of the details on page 5. And we have State Police way to go, say governors and legal giants as well as others. Page 4. Started on the front page, continue reading on page 4. The last story in the front of the Nation newspaper this morning says federal government seeks payment of 2 trillion naira debts from miners. All right, to get details on page 4. Now let's move on to the Punch newspaper, where we have lots of headlines in the front as well. Let's take from the masthead. Federal government bars states from collecting mining royalties. Page 8 has details. Naira rebounds as a bank offload excess dollars. Page 36. And Punch celebrates 50th anniversary with week-long activities. Get details on page 8. And a very screaming story, boldly captioned, is on the abductions. 15 states enlist 50,000 vigilantes against kidnappers. One writer says Sokoto training 2,000 men, Delta recruited 2,400, Ogun 16,500, say governor's aides. And then abductors threatening to kill Ekiti school children, reduce ransom to 15 million naira. That's according to the parents there. Get details of the story on page 2 and 43 of the Punch newspaper. And on by-elections, IG warns troublemakers, restricts movement in 26 states. Page 43 has details. Protest rocks OAUTH over 2,000 sacked workers. Get details of that on page 42. Airfares to UK, US orders jump by 55%. If you're trying to travel, you're planning to travel to the United Kingdom or the US, now this is where you need to go get more details. Page 36 has details of that story. And then Lagos and Chinese firm seal rail and bridge project deals. Get details on page 6 of the Punch newspaper. And that's about the stories in front of the Punch newspaper this morning. Now let's move to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian has a lead story that says that starts with a kicker, agony of road users, and it says over 120 extortion points, double travel time and travelers' pains in Southeast. Talking about, the agony of road users, there is a big story. Pages 4 and 5 has details of that story, the lead story in the Guardian newspaper this morning. Let's go below that. Federal government decries minus 2 trillion naira debt and illegal operators. Page 29 has details of the story. And then, of course, we have a pictorial of the agony of road users story there about how an average of 5-minute delay at each stop if both gatekeepers and drivers are in the mood to play ball. The 120 checkpoints implied 10 hours of extra travel time per trip. Wow, just imagine you having a 10 hours added time to your trip. All right, to get details of that story there. And then OAUTH sacks 1,500 workers months after recruitment without pay. We're trying to understand how this works and how this happens and how it got to this. Page 27 has details of that story. Let's take another one from The Guardian. Akpabio, Gowon, others urge Nigerians to emulate Onayekan's virtues. Page 29 has details. Bandits abduct director near military base as report cites a rising impact of insecurity. Where it happened, get details on page 3 here in the Guardian newspaper. CBN intensifies action against speculators as Naira rebounds slowly. Page 6 has details. And let's go further below. This is on rerun elections. Voter apathy looms as IGP restricts movement in 26 states. How this voter apathy is looming, get details on that on page 6. 40 days after, worries over delay in swearing in of 11 Supreme Court justices. Page 7 has details of this story. Let's go further below. Nigerians sell their relatives as low as 30,000 naira to traffickers, NGO reveals. Interesting read. Get details, page 28. Federal government targets 77% in increase in IGR to fund projects and others. Page 7 has details of that story. And that's about the stories in front of the Guardian newspaper. Let's move on to the Vanguard. And the Vanguard seems to have very striking pictorials and stories. And a very sad one still appearing from other papers on the Vanguard is the Ekiti children's kidnap. Now, this says that after Ekiti, more children kidnapped in Benue. Riders attached to the story says armed headers kill 15 in Agatu. Bandits demand cough syrup rise 290 million naira to release 7 hostages. That's another shocking rather attached to the story. Another one says abducted Ekiti pupils school. Parents, community launch crowdfunding for ransom. We've talked about crowdfunding, but Again, you think about in these situations, what can they do? And police arrest 8 suspects, urge residents to stay calm. That's the story, attached to the lead story in the Vanguard. The riders get details of that on page 5. Let's go above that. We have banks borrowing from CBN rise 269% to 3.6 trillion naira on 1 month. And below that, we have why government should remove electricity subsidy. That's coming from the power minister. We also have Tinubu congratulates Dangote on backing Senegalese award. Page 19 has details. And on hardship, 7 months not enough to fix Nigeria. That's coming from federal government. Let's go below the bottom strip. We have established state police to fight insecurity. PDP governors tell federal government. And that is on page 4. We have pictorials of the PDP governors on sympathy visit to Plateau. All right, to get details of that story. And then court jails actress 6 months for spraying and stepping on new Naira notes. We've seen a rest of that before. I think it's coming again. Page 6 has details of that story. And yes, we have gone through so many stories this morning in the front pages of some selected newspapers. And also there is Tribune. We get a further to take in Tribune newspaper, the Nigerian Tribune rather. And we have a lead story with the Kika abducted school children. Parents lament and IGP moves AIG to Ekiti. Page 27 has details. And 13 suspects arrested. We need help. Our children, wives, battling with life in kidnappers' den. Parents of kidnapped pupils cry out. Page 27 has details of that story. And then Benue community boils again. 15 bodies recovered and several victims missing. Page 26. Government abduct Federal Housing Authority Director in Abuja. Page 26 again has details of that story. And on alleged 109 billion naira fraud, ex-AGF Ahmed Idris kicks as EFCC tenders video evidence. Well, you might want to get details of that on page 28. And crude oil sales takeover by CBN illegal. That's coming from Atiku. Page 2 has details of that story. And then INEC excludes PDP from Saturday rerun in Plateau. Radis attached to the story says court disqualifies PDP candidate in Ebonyi. And IGP orders restriction of movement in 26 states. Page 5 has details. And let's take a look at this one. Nigerians are paying over 200 unofficial taxes. That's coming from Oyedele. This might be interesting because I really want to know what unofficial taxes I am paying at the moment. And I'm sure that will be interesting to you too. Page 6 has details of that story. And PDP governors back call for state policing. Donate 100 million naira to victims of Plateau crisis. And now we go to sports. The Punch Sports, where, of course, Nigerians will be playing today. And a lot of Nigerians are anticipating and hoping that Nigerians get out of this unscratched. Now, let's take a look at some of the stories here. Nigeria versus Angola takes center stage. Here we go again. Eagles, Antelopes tussle for the final spot in tricky clash. And Lukman eyes Yekini's AFCON record, and Angolan striker targets Eagles' cap. All right, let's see how that pans out today. 6 p.m. is the time. And of course, we are looking forward to getting out of this, like I said, on scratch. Let's take a look at other stories here. Oshuala quits Barca, that's Barcelona, and joins US club. Get details of that on page 8. Osimhen not Jesus upgrade. All right, White Sylvester has to say that. Get details of that on page 6. And Arsenal join Rashford chase. Okay, Marcus Rashford and all of the instability and all of that. Get details of that. How Arsenal is joining Rashford chase now, or qualifies him to join Arsenal. You might just get details of that on page 4. And then we have, fixtures of the AFCON, Nigeria versus Angola. We have Democratic Republic of Congo and Guinea playing today. And we also have the Asian Cup, Syria and Bundesliga fixtures on the front page. I'm a gladiator. That's coming from Bellingham. And Madrid target Van Dijk, page 3, has details. Hamilton to join Ferrari in 2025. Wow, a lot of people would like to see, Formula One lovers would like to see how this pans out. But let's see, let's keep a tab on that and see how it turns out at the end of the day. And then Brazilian superstar renamed after Pelé. All right, those are the stories in front of the Punch Sports Extra. And that's the last selected national daily we will be taking on the show this morning. And to review that, we have just very little time to do the review right now. I'm being joined by Mr. Daniel Mensing. Mr. Daniel Mensing is a veteran journalist, and he will be here reviewing the paper with me this morning. It's good to have you join us on the show.
Good to have you.
All right, let's take a look at, the Ekiti children's kidnap. That's a major concern right now in Nigeria. Talking about kidnapping of Nigerians. Now we have a whole load bus of students, and then they're developing stories, and then they're crowdfunding. Tell me what you think about that crowdfunding and the development so far.
Well, it's only tell us that our security need to wake up. What they are trying, but what they are doing is not much. It has not achieved any desired goals, because every day you hear kidnapping there, kidnapping there. We have seen that of Ekiti adoption. Last night, a monarch, former general, was killed in his house. His wife was taken away.
After 2 others were killed.
Around
Monarchs.
11. Yes, around
so it seems
11.
Like
around 11 p.m. last night. So it shows that there is need to be done.
Okay, now let's move on to Nigeria's decry rising cost of living, and this cannot be far-fetched from what we're seeing as a nation now. I'm talking about the free fall of the naira, which of course we've discussed extensively. But how bad is Nigeria going through this high cost of living?
I would not just say bad, very painful, because and it is also a needless pain. Why a needless pain? We are rich. We have all it takes to make every Nigerian comfortable. But this is where we found ourselves. A bag of rice in January was 45,000, now is 70. And the reason is just simple. When there's no security, anything can happen. Farmers cannot go to farm to produce what they will eat. People cannot travel to boost the economic activities of the nation, and so many other things. So I think we need to cry louder, but not just crying. Everybody need to wake up.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to remind the custodian of our security to step up. And then everybody need to stand up, because what is happening now, when there's no security, you don't go to farm, you can't get food.
Okay.
And then the business people who supposed to, our business environment is also scary. Who would like to invest in an insecure nation? So there are a lot of things. So we need to wake up.
Now, to curb these insecurity problems, governors are now calling for state policing. Plus, Sokoto is training about 2,000 men, and Delta, of course, followed suit, Ogun State, and we've seen that happen in Katsina. Do you think that this is going to help in solving the problem or even curbing the issues of insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, people have no choice, because if the police, the army, the SSS you have, and they are not making you feel safe, what do? You need to stand up. So I support the state police, because they know who is who. And even they should work together, not just with them, but I think our security agencies need to get our those that retired from the armed forces to come back. Maybe they know better than this, because during their time we didn't have this. I know Metetsine was on in the 80s, and it was even more dangerous than what we have today, but everything was able to cope up. They were able to control everything within days. But look at our own right now, for years now, from Boko Haram to banditry, from banditry to kidnapping, which has become a new business. So I think something needs to be done. Our veterans, they need to call them, let them put on their uniforms, and let's see what they can do. Maybe they may even do better.
Now let's talk about the rerun elections now that would take place in 26 states, tomorrow being the 3rd of February 2024. And a lot of people are talking about voter apathy because the IG have restricted movement in 26 states, and is saying that by 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. only essential workers, are able to come. Do you see some sort of voter apathy happening because of the restriction of movement by the IGP?
Well, not just restriction of movement, but what will cause this voter apathy is many people are losing hope in those whom they elect to represent them, So that will be one of the main factors. And then there's no money. People who want to travel maybe to their places where they're registered to vote, they can't move. And then you look at the security situation. How am I sure if I leave from this point A to point B that I'll be safe to reach there and to come back? So these are some of the things that actually, to me, will affect the elections tomorrow. But we hope that something better should
turn up at the end of the day. All right, I just used 2 cents on our game for this evening, African Cup of Nations, Nigeria, Angola.
Well, Nigeria will defeat Angola.
Yes, I'm hoping that too. I'm praying that, we defeat them.
With the clamor, our Super Eagles knows the weight or the expectation from 200 million Nigerians. So I believe they will not sleep.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel.
It's going to be 1-0 or 2-0.
Oh, God. You can just leave it at 1-0. I don't care about the number of goals right now. I think 1-0 is fine. And it's more painful when it's just 1-0. Like, I could have gotten another goal and then we'll just get to the penalty shootout. But, it is what it is. And the goals determine who wins at the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your analysis.
We may even end up carrying the cup.
I hope so. I hope so too. I hope so. Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel Mensing, for your analysis this morning on the newspaper review. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
All right, and this is where we call it a close on today's edition, the last edition for the week of Daybreak. Don't forget that, of course, tomorrow we have Daybreak Extra, where we'll be discussing, things that interest you. And talking about African Cup of Nations and all of the stories concerning sports in detailed discussion. At the top of the hour, we have the sports crew coming in. You do not want to miss that. And if you missed today's program, hurry up to our social media platforms for updates and also keeping up with these programs. My name is Martia Umar. Stay tuned and don't go anywhere. Thank you for watching Daybreak.